When a man casts his glance forward, he will find that the three chief temporal contingencies for which he has to provide are want of employment, sickness, and death. The two first he may escape, but the last is inevitable. It is, however, the duty of the prudent man so to live, and so to arrange, that the pressure of suffering, in event of either contingency occurring, shall be mitigated to as great an extent as possible, not only to himself, but also to those who are dependent upon him for their comfort and subsistence. Viewed in this light, the honest earning and the frugal use of money are of the greatest importance. Rightly earned, it is the representative of patient industry and untiring effort, of temptation resisted, and help rewarded. And rightly used, it affords indications of prudence, forethought and self-denial, the true basis of manly character. Though money represents a crowd of objects without any real worth or utility, it also represents many things of great value. Not only food, clothing, and household satisfaction, but personal self-respect and independence. Thus a store of savings is to the working man as a barricade against want. It secures him a footing, and enables him to wait, it may be in cheerfulness and hope, until better days come round. The very endeavor to gain a firmer position in the world has a certain dignity in it, and tends to make a man stronger and better. At all events it gives him greater freedom of action, and enables him to husband his strength for future effort. But the man who is always hovering on the verge of want is in a state not far removed from that of slavery. He is in no sense his own master, but is in constant peril of falling under the bondage of others, and accepting the terms which they dictate to him. He cannot help being, in a measure, servile, for he dares not look the world boldly in the face. And in adverse times he must look either to alms or the poor's rates. If work fails him altogether, he has not the means of moving to another field of employment. He is fixed to his parish like a limpet to its rock, and can neither migrate nor emigrate. To secure independence, the practice of simple economy is all that is necessary. Economy requires neither superior courage nor eminent virtue. It is satisfied with ordinary energy, and the capacity of average minds. Economy, at bottom, is but the spirit of order applied in the administration of domestic affairs. It means management, regularity, prudence, and the avoidance of waste. The spirit of economy was expressed by our Divine Master in the words, "Gather up the fragments that remain, so that nothing may be lost." His omnipotence did not disdain the small things of life. And even while revealing his infinite power to the multitude, he taught the pregnant lesson of carefulness of which all stand so much in need. Economy also means the power of resisting present gratification for the purpose of securing a future good, and in this light it represents the ascendancy of reason over the animal instincts. It is altogether different from penuriousness, for it is economy that can always best afford to be generous. It does not make money an idol, but regards it as a useful agent. As Dean Swift observes, we must carry money in the head, not in the heart. Economy may be styled the daughter of prudence, the sister of temperance, and the mother of liberty. It is evidently conservative of character, of domestic happiness, and social well-being. It is, in short, the exhibition of self-help in one of its best forms. Francis Horner's father gave him this advice on entering life, "Whilst I wish you to be comfortable in every respect, I cannot too strongly inculcate economy. It is a necessary virtue to all. And however the shallow part of mankind may despise it, it certainly leads to independence, which is a grand object to every man of a high spirit." Burns' lines, quoted at the head of this chapter, contain the right idea. But unhappily his strain of song was higher than his practice, his ideal better than his habit. When laid on his deathbed he wrote to a friend, "Alas, Clark, I begin to feel the worst. Burns' poor widow, and half a dozen of his dear little ones helpless orphans. There I am weak as a woman's tear. Enough of this. 'Tis half my disease. Every man ought so to contrive as to live within his means. This practice is of the very essence of honesty. For if a man do not manage honestly to live within his own means, he must necessarily be living dishonestly upon the means of somebody else. Those who are careless about personal expenditure, and consider merely their own gratification, without regard for the comfort of others, generally find out the real uses of money when it is too late. Though by nature generous, these thriftless persons are often driven in the end to do very shabby things. They waste their money as they do their time, draw bills upon the future, anticipate their earnings, and are thus under the necessity of dragging after them a load of debts and obligations which seriously affect their action as free and independent men. It was a maxim of Lord Bacon, that when it was necessary to economize, it was better to look after petty savings than to descend to petty gettings. The loose cash which many persons throw away uselessly, and worse, would often form a basis of fortune and independence for life. These wasters are their own worst enemies, though generally found amongst the ranks of those who rail at the injustice of the world. But if a man will not be his own friend, how can he expect that others will? Orderly men of moderate means have always something left in their pockets to help others, whereas your prodigal and careless fellows who spend all never find an opportunity for helping anybody. It is poor economy, however, to be a scrub. Narrow-mindedness in living and in dealing is generally short-sighted, and leads to failure. The penny soul, it is said, never came to twopence. Generosity and liberality, like honesty, prove the best policy after all. Though Jenkinson, in The Vicar of Wakefield, cheated his kind-hearted neighbor Flamborough in one way or another every year, Flamborough, said he, has been regularly growing in riches, while I have come to poverty and a jail. And practical life abounds in cases of brilliant results from a course of generous and honest policy. The proverb says that an empty bag cannot stand upright. Neither can a man who is in debt. It is also difficult for a man who is in debt to be truthful. Hence it is said that lying rides on death's back. The debtor has to frame excuses to his creditor for postponing payment of the money he owes him, and probably also to contrive falsehoods. It is easy enough for a man who will exercise a healthy resolution to avoid incurring the first obligation, but the facility with which that has been incurred often becomes a temptation to a second, and very soon the unfortunate borrower becomes so entangled that no late exertion of industry can set him free. The first step in debt is like the first step in falsehood, almost involving the necessity of proceeding in the same course, debt following debt, as lie follows lie. Haydn, the painter, dated his decline from the day on which he first borrowed money. He realized the truth of the proverb, "Who goes a-borrowing, goes a-sorrowing." The significant entry in his diary is, "Here began debt and obligation, out of which I have never been and never shall be extricated as long as I live." His autobiography shows but too painfully how embarrassment in money matters produces poignant distress of mind, utter incapacity for work, and constantly recurring humiliations. The written advice which he gave to a youth when entering the Navy was as follows: never purchase any enjoyment if it cannot be procured without borrowing of others. Never borrow money, it is degrading. I do not say never lend, but never lend if by lending you render yourself unable to pay what you owe. But under any circumstances never borrow. Fichte, the poor student, refused to accept even presents from his still poorer parents. Dr. Johnson held that early debt is ruin. His words on the subject are weighty, and worthy of being held in remembrance. "Do not," said he, "accustom yourself to consider debt only as an inconvenience. You will find it a calamity. Poverty takes away so many means of doing good, and produces so much inability to resist evil, both natural and moral, that it is by all virtuous means to be avoided. Let it be your first care, then, not to be in any man's debt. Resolve not to be poor. Whatever you have spent less. Poverty is a great enemy to human happiness. It certainly destroys liberty, and it makes some virtues impracticable and others extremely difficult. Frugality is not only the basis of quiet, but of beneficence. No man can help others that wants help himself. We must have enough before we have to spare.